program primarily provides training and technical assistance for the local agencies here in New York State, but we'll answer questions and help out anyone who has a road problem, from the state to someone in a homeowners association. At the Transportation Research Board meeting in Washington, D.C. in the early 1980s, they figured out what would be a good national program. The Local Technical Assistance Program, or LTAP, has chapters in every single state, Puerto Rico, and there are tribal technical assistance program centers. So when people ask us for recommendations on what could be done to make local roads and streets, or small urban areas, to make those roads better, what I usually say is a local road actually needs to be more sophisticated. The people who manage those systems need to do even more new and high-tech things because they don't have extra staff. They're very short-staffed, so they need to be able to take advantage of new technologies. Now, flipping that coin a little bit, realize that local agencies do tend to be more conservative. They tend to be less likely to adopt new technologies on the whole. So you'll have a few champions who really push things forward. You'll have some agencies who are in the middle, they're just waiting. And then you have a lot of folks who are reluctant to change, and that's a known problem nationally, not just here in New York State. I'd say the biggest thing about local roads is that it's usually small agencies with local dollars. 75% of the road mileage in all the country and about 80% here in New York State is maintained by a local agency, whether that's a county, a town, a village, a city, a borough, a parish, different names across the country. Those local roads are vital to the community's economic vitality, the community spirit. They get their goods from point A to point B, the old farm to market roads. And so those roads really need to have people supporting them because they're small agencies and not typically run by engineers. And even when they are, they're usually very short-staffed. And so having people who can help them with technical assistance and training is vital to maintaining these roads with the limited funds that they've got. Some of the consequences for having limited funds, a limited staff, is that local agencies tend to have to stretch their dollars even further. They tend to wait a little bit longer to do that maintenance. They tend to be a little bit rougher. They tend to have a higher crash rate because they tend to be narrower. And we don't tend to react and do the repairs until after the crashes have occurred. You're much more likely to have a crash on a local system than you are on the state system. The right-of-way, the clear zone from the edge of the road to the first dangerous object is usually tighter. Workforce development is going to be a major issue for local agencies as we come out of COVID. The smaller agencies typically don't have much room for or much margin for loss of one or two people. And so the Great Resignation, they've lost a lot of staff. And in addition, they're having a hard time recruiting new staff. The other two things that are going to really hit hard as we come out of COVID. One of them is some new rules that exist for commercial driver's licenses that make it much harder for a local agency to just have internal people learn and drive truck. There's a requirement for training. That's going to hurt quite a bit because we know nationwide we're going to be down 400,000, and that's in the commercial sector, not the public sector. The other one is that local agencies tend to pay less. They tend to pay less funds, so it's hard to get good people and keep those people. And the benefits that used to be much better at the governmental level aren't so much. The public sector's benefits haven't kept up. And so it's going to be hard to keep those employees and recruit those employees. Everybody thinks they live on a local road. Even someone who lives on the major state highway, if they have a driveway, they think they live on a local road. They want their street to feel like home. And so it's that first and last mile that is so vital to the feeling of our communities and to the overall welfare of our communities, not just economically, but as communities themselves. And so as we think about local road systems, we need to think about how do they interplay with the rest of the network, with the interstates, with the arterials. If they work well with them, everybody feels like a strong community. When they don't, people feel like you're leaving the main roads going into the places you don't want to go. And I want to just make sure we realize that first and last mile, that local road is something we all know in the bottom of our hearts is something that's pretty important.